Find an equation in standard form for the ellipse with center 6, 8, horizontal major axis of length 6, and passes through the point 8, 7. Okay, so it will help us to generally draw the picture. Even though it's not required, we don't have to draw the picture, I think it'll help us. So let's do that. So I'll just draw a little axis system here. Okay, so, and then we'll go over to 6, so the center is 6, 8. So go over to, there's 1, 2, oops. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So over 6, up 8. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So over 6, up 8. Right there's the center of the ellipse. And it has horizontal major axis of length 6. So the major axis is the horizontal. That means this thing goes more sideways than it does up and down, right? The horizontal, the right and left, is the major axis. It's wider than it is tall. And the length is 6. That means from there to there is 6. So that means it, from the center it must go 3 each direction. So we go 1, 2, 3 in that direction, and 1, 2, 3 in that direction. Does that make sense? That makes this axis of this horizontal axis of total length 6, 3 in each direction. Okay, now what does that mean about the equation? Well, first off, if the center is 6, 8, that means x minus 6 squared over a squared plus y minus 8 squared over b squared equals 1, right? That's the general form of an ellipse equation. And remember that we always put the opposite and the opposite whenever we put a number in parentheses next to x or y. So the opposite of the 6 and the opposite of the 8, negative 6 and negative 8, for the center, okay? Now, do we know the a? So all we got left to find is the a squared and the b squared, and we've got the equation. Do we know the a? What is a? It's underneath x. So it's how far right, left from the center. Remember, A and B are always how far from the center. So A is how far right, left from the center. From the center. So how far to the right? 3. How far to the left? Negative 3 from the center. So that must be 3. So we can put that in. This must be 3 squared. So all we got left now to find is b. We have everything but b. How are we going to find b? Well, they tell us it passes through the point 8, 7. 8, 7, let's find that. 7, 8 over up 7. Let me get rid of this here. Get rid of these guys. Okay, and we'll try to put that dot on there. So over 8, up 7, right there. So that means that's a point on the shape. In other words, right, it must hit right there. Meaning the ellipse must do something like that. It hits right there at the point over 8, up 7. That's a point on the edge, right? It passes through the point 8, 7. That's on the ellipse. 8, 7. Let me put this back to where it was. This was 3 to the right, and this was 3 to the left. That's how we found a squared, which was under x. Anyway, so what? Okay, so 8, 7 is a point on the ellipse. Well, it's important in college algebra that you understand that whenever somebody has any equation of any kind, and they give you a point on that equation, a point that's on that graph, a point right here that's on the graph. Any point on the graph means it satisfies the equation. So 8, 7, 8 for x, 7 for y, plugged in must make the equation true. Right? That's what it means to be a point on a graph. If you plug in the x and the y number of the point, if I plug in 8 right here for x and 7 right here for y, it's got to make the equation true. That's what the points on a graph do. That's what a graph is a million little dots whose x and y values all make the equation true. That's why a graph is a picture of the truth of the equation. It's all the dots, right? There's a million other dots all around the edge here of this ellipse. And all of them, if you take their x and y coordinates for each of those points and plug them into the equation, they'll make it true. That's what a graph, any graph, not just an ellipse, any graph at any time in mathematics, any graph is always a picture of all the points that make the equation true. So if they say, hey, 8, 7 is a point on the graph, we know, oh, if I plug in 8, 7, it makes the equation true. So let's go back then. Let's plug that in. 8 minus 6 squared over 3 squared plus 7 minus 8 squared over b squared must equal 1. So what is that? That's 2 squared over 3 squared plus negative 1 squared over b squared is 1. That's 4/9. Oops, wasn't very well done. So let's switch back. 4/9 plus 1 over b squared is 1. So now I can solve this equation for b. So let's subtract 4/9 from both sides. What happens over here? Well, this is 9/9 minus 4/9. 9/9 minus 4/9. So that's 5/9. These cancel. All right. Now, how do we handle it when we have two equal fractions? You can cross multiply, right? 1 times 9 equals 5 times b squared. I'll bring it over here. So 9 equals 5b squared. Let's finish solving for b. Divide by 5. B squared is 9/5. And so, if you do the square root on both sides, and I'll just get a, just gonna get a number on my calculator. I'm getting 1.3416407. That's enough accuracy right there. Well, here I'll get a little bit more. 0786. So there's B. All right. So we've got our equation now. So let's go back and we can write our equation. Here it was right here, almost done except for B. So bring this down. So we had x minus, what was it? 6 squared over 3 squared plus y minus 8 squared over b squared. B squared equals 1. And now we know what b is. So plug that in. So that's going to become, let me put this back, that'll become, so 1.341640786 squared. So then that's x minus 6 squared over 9. Go ahead and make that 3 squared 9. Plus y minus 8 squared over. Then use your calculator. Raise that to the second power. Oh, I'm getting a nice clean 1.8 So there we go. So there is the equation of that ellipse. So how did we do it again? So we took the information they gave us, and they gave us the center, 6, 8, so we knew minus 6 and minus 8 in the equation. They told us the horizontal major axis was length 6, so that meant 3 this way and 3 that way, so that meant 3 squared goes under x, because whatever's underneath x is right and left from the center, so that's 3 squared. So all we had left to find was b. We found b by plugging in this point. They told us 8, 7 was a point on the graph. So I plugged in 8 for x and 7 for y, got this equation, and then I just worked it all out, and we eventually solved for b. Once we had b, we plugged it back in, squared it, squared the 3, and there's our equation.